Good morning. Nice to see all of you this morning. My name is Leonard Sebastian. I'm the coordinator of the Indonesia program. And welcome to our RSIS seminar, Indonesia's 2024 presidential and legislative elections, an election update. This election update is organized by the IDSS Indonesia program. And it's a great pleasure for me to host this webinar this morning. Indonesia's presidential and parliamentary elections take place on the 14th of February. Since September 2023, we have observed how the presidential contest has evolved into an intriguing contest between the three presidential candidates: Defense Minister Prabowo Subianto, ex-governor of Central Java, Ganjar Pranowo, and the ex-governor of Jakarta, Anies Baswedan. At the same time, we also observed that there is a parliamentary election with its own particular dynamics, as Indonesia's largest party, the PDIP, battles to regain or to retain its dominance against second-place Gerindra, while newer, smaller parties are seeking to enter into the parliamentary structure. This webinar seeks to provide an update to the latest political developments in Indonesia, as well as expert assessments of how the elections could play out. We are very pleased and honored that we have two distinguished speakers to share with us their insights on the upcoming election dynamics. Let me first introduce to you Professor Firman Noor, who is speaking to us from Lund in Sweden, where he is having a visiting appointment at Lund University. Professor Firman is Senior Researcher, Research Center for Politics at the National Research and Innovation Agency in Indonesia. He is also Director of Research for the Center of Politics, Indonesia Institute of Sciences, P2P LIPI, from 2017 to 2021, and is currently the chairman of the Association of Indonesia Political Sciences, AIPI, from 2017 to 2022, and he focuses his research on political parties, elections, democracy, nationalism, and political representation. Our second speaker will be Dr. Jayadi Hanan, who is the head of the PhD program in political science at the Indonesian International Islamic University, UITIKA. He has immense expertise in studying political and voting behavior, utilizing both quantitative and qualitative methodologies. It is an absolute pleasure for us to have both Professor Firman and Dr. Jayadi with us this morning. And I'd like to now invite Pak Jayadi Hanan to begin this webinar. Pak Jayadi, the floor is yours.
Right. Good morning, everyone. Selamat pagi. Pak Firman, selamat pagi Pak Firman ya.
Selamat pagi.
Ya. Thank you to RSIS, particularly Professor Leonard Sebastian, for hosting me again in the occasion of RSIS. I think I am assuming, Professor Leonard, that most of the participants of the webinar today are following quite closely what is going on in Indonesian elections so far. So I think most of you are more interested in the current state of the race, the dynamic. So I will just go directly to that issue. if you have other questions related to things like the policies and so on and so forth, we can discuss later on, and I will answer the best I can. So let me share several of my slides that I have been preparing, and I think you can see that. So I will start with what is the current mood in general of Indonesian voters about leading up to the election, which will be conducted concurrently between presidential and legislative elections on February the 14th. So, but before that, I will just remind everyone about this thing, which is touched a little bit by, has been reminded actually by Dr. Leonard, that we are going to have concurrent legislative and presidential elections. My point in this slide is that if you look at the sheer numbers involved in this election, you see that it is very complex, although not necessarily complicated, but complex is yes. Here, what Indonesian voters are going to do is to cast the ballot for one presidency, consisting of one presidential candidate, one president and one vice president. They will also elect or cast the ballot for 580 House of Representative members in 84 national electoral districts. The parliament, for the national parliament, which is called DPR or DPR in Indonesia, they will also elect 152 a kind of senators from each of the province of Indonesia, consisting of 38 province. Each province becomes the national electoral district for the Senate. And then we will also need to fill out 19,882 local House representative members at the local levels. So you see the numbers is staggering, right? And then it will involve the more than 200 million voters, which according to Indonesian General Election Commission, 56 of them is residing in Java. It will also involve more than 823,000 polling stations across 17,000 islands. I checked this morning, the number of population of Singapore is around 5.4, yeah, Dr. Leonard? And I will tell you that if all of that 5.4 million are imported to Indonesia to manage Indonesian polling stations, it is not enough. You know, because to manage this more than 800,000 polling stations, we'll need almost 6 million people, polling stations officials. And the ballots that will be involved is more than 1 billion, because each voter will cast 5 ballots for president, for a national parliament, for national senate, for local House of Representatives. And in addition to that, after this national election of 14th of February, we will also have local elections to elect 37 governors and all of the district heads and mayors of more than 514 district and municipalities in Indonesia, which is scheduled to be held on November 2024. So we have 2 big national events in 2024, starting with February. Now, I promise you to go to see what is the current national mood of Indonesian voters in general about the macro conditions. This is the political stability issue. In terms of the political stability, you see here in general, political stability is in quite good condition, Pak Leonard. So it is not so much different from other time when we are going to the election time. The same thing happened to security conditions. So according to the public, security is okay. And it is always been like that since 2004. And then law enforcement, although you heard several issues, related to this during the last couple of weeks. So people's mood on law enforcement is mixed between good and bad. Yeah, but in general, the number for good or positive evaluation is a bit better than the number of negative evaluations. And then the same thing happens to economy. People's evaluations on economy in general is, although still a lot of them evaluating negatively, but the number of positive evaluation is a bit slightly higher than the number of negative evaluations. All in all, my point of providing you with some of these slides is that in general, in the public modes, Indonesia is actually in a quite stable condition to go to the polls, which is going to be held less than 1 month from now, on the 14th of February 2024, meaning that there is a conducive macro conditions for Indonesia in general. With that, I would like to convey that it is logical to expect, as I have said this morning to Dr. Leonard, that I am expecting that Indonesian elections will be running quite good, except if there is a kind of surprise during the next 1 month or so. All right. Now, the current state of the race in general, I am summarizing. By the way, this is the possibly the ballot that will be cast by the voters for presidential election. 1, 2, or 3. So in general, based on the number of latest polls that I have seen or evaluating, here is the current state of the race. In three-way race, candidate number 1, with abbreviation of Amin, has around 20 to 25% of political support, if we make an average of all of the polls that have been released. Meanwhile, Prabowo and Gibran, without clear abbreviation, got between 43 or 42 to 47. And then the candidate number 3, Ganjar Mahfud, sometimes called Gama, sometimes some people call it GoFood. It's around 20 to 25%. And some numbers, in most of the poll, who said that they don't know or not answer yet in the polls, has been quite low, between 6 to 10%. But this number will be very important if you look at the number of each of the candidates. Second point I would like to make in this slide is that if there is a second round, then we will have two-way race. And so far, all polls, if there are two-way race, particularly in the second round, there is a highly possibility that Prabowo will have significant lead, whoever becomes his opponent in the second round. On the other hand, polls also find Ganjar on the significant lead against Anies if Ganjar and Anies happen to enter the second round. So, but also in general, Anies is trailing both candidates in the second round if Anies enter the second round. Another issue also, the so-called, you may call it swing voters. In the polls, we asked about the possibility of the voters to do vote switching between the three candidates, and we find that possibility of vote switching is around 20 to 25%. And interestingly, this 20 to 25% seems to be distributed evenly, Pak Leonard, among those three candidates, meaning that, yes, if you look at it as a nominal number, the vote switching is quite high. But because the vote switching possibility is evenly distributed, among those three candidates, it seems that the switch, logically speaking, will not affect the number of each of the candidates, because the switch can be canceled out each other. What I mean is that if the voters from Anies switch to Prabowo, there is also a possibility of the voters of Prabowo to switch to Anies and also to Ganjar and so on and so forth. In the end, it will be canceled out. So the number for the three would ended up being similar to what I have said before. The possibility of shifting based on the current data that I have seen is that most probably the shifting from Ganjar to Prabowo, particularly the non-PDIV voters. You know, in Ganjar's column, before Jokowi clearly endorsed Prabowo, before Gibran, the son of Jokowi, is in the ballot for Prabowo, then the voters for Ganjar consist of two types of voters. One is PDIV voters, two is non-PDIV voters who voted for Jokowi in 2019. The one who has shifted to Prabowo during the last 2 months are mostly the Jokowi voters in 2019, but they are not PDIV voters. For instance, they are the voters of Golkar, PAN, and so on and so forth. While the one that is remaining in Ganjar's column is mostly the PDIP voters. So as you know, the PDIP voters is very solid usually. They are very militant, voting for their own party and party's candidate. The other possibility is the switching, although less than the switch from Ganjar to Prabowo, from Prabowo to Anies. Because of the entrance of Gibran into Prabowo's column, there is a possibility of the so-called anti-Jokowi voters inside Prabowo's column to switch to Anies. It is the reason why during the last 2 months, you see that the number of Prabowo has been significantly adding up all the way to 47%. But at the same time, the number for Anies is getting up a little bit to the level of 25, sometimes 26. Well, at the same time, the number for Ganjar has consistently decreasing during the last 2 months. Those are the dynamics of the current state of the race that I can share with you so far. Now, what are the issues that can be influential? Number one, as you know, the so-called political dynasty, the Jokowi's issue because of the MK's ruling, putting Gibran on the ballot. It seems that this issue apparently does not affect significantly and that does not affect negatively significant to Prabowo's voters, to Prabowo's support. Why is that? Many reasons, I think. One is this issue is not so widely distributed around the country. The one who is aware about this issue is only around 40% or 50% at the most, mostly affecting the voters in urban areas, highly educated, middle up class, and so on and so forth, who are mostly have been taking side with particularly Anies and Ganjar in general. Now, the other thing is that, as I said, Indonesian voters are predominantly low educated people. They are about 65% of Indonesian voters has the level of education middle school or below. So this issue of political dynasty seems to be not very convincing to them compared to the issue of, let's say, economy. The other possibility is that the issue of the so-called political dynasty has been around Indonesia for quite long, because particularly in local areas. So it seems that many voters have seen that as normal issues, not something that needs to worry about. That is possibly some of the possible answers to why this issue is not affecting negatively Prabowo and Gibran's number. The other issue is state apparatus neutrality, because of, the president is clearly taking side with one candidate, in this case Prabowo. That is another issue in this election. Another hot issue now is about whether or not we will have 1 or 2 rounds of presidential election. As you see from the numbers that I have discussed, that at this point in January 2024, if you are asking me whether or not there will be 1 or 2 rounds of presidential election, I can answer it can go either way. So the chance of having 1 or 2 rounds seems to be similar now. The other issue is presidential debates, and as you can see that after 3 presidential debates, two presidential candidates and then 1 vice presidential candidates debate, the movement of the voters is not so much significant. In early December, before the debates, LSI found that the number of Prabowo is around 46, but now the number of Prabowo after 3 debates is around 46 and 47 too. So simply put, the debate seems to be not affecting very much. Probably because the ones that could be the target of the movement, in this case the so-called quote-unquote undecided, is still waiting for the next 2 debates maybe, and some other issues. Okay, now let me run through. Do I still have time, Dr. Leonard? Okay. I think this is common pattern. Number one, I think as you can see that all provinces with more than 6 million voters will be the main targets of the campaigns. West Java, East Java, Central Java, North Sumatra, Banten, Jakarta, Sumatra, Lampung, and South Sulawesi. These are the provinces that becomes the main targets because their number of voters is more than 6 million, particularly 3 provinces: West Java with more than 34 or 35 million voters, East Java with the voters around 32 or 31 million, and then Central Java. For 2 reasons for Central Java, I think in terms of the number of voters, around 30 million, and also in terms of the fact that it is the number one is the central stronghold of PDIP, but also the center of Jokowi's presidency, right? So it is interesting to watch what happens in Central Java. And then again, West Java, East Java, and now Central Java become the battlegrounds. For example, in December 2023, this is our latest poll that released early January. The current state of the race in East Java is 46.7 for Prabowo, 26.6% for Ganjar, and 16.2% for Anies Mohaimin. If we look at this number and refer this back to 2014 and 2019 elections, we know that the battleground of East Java can be the barometer of national election. Whoever wins the election in East Java has the high possibility of winning at the national level. Now you see the number is like this. Other issue is about the so-called millennial and post-millennials. They are around 52% if combined. And I'm not going to touch that because it's been discussed a lot. And then also the importance of Jokowi voters that I have also touched a little bit. Jokowi voters now divided. If we divide them into PDIP and non-PDIP voters, as you can see, the non-PDIP voters has been, in general, moving toward Prabowo's column. Some of them, a little bit, are moving toward Anies. Therefore, the number for Ganjar is decreasing. While Prabowo voters, as you can also, if you're following Indonesian election, Prabowo voters has been like this, dividing into Anies and Prabowo himself. It seems that the number of Prabowo voters who are migrating toward Anies is getting more and more, but the speed of the migration has been slowing down so far. And then another issue that might be your interest is, what about identity politics, which is very famous in 2014 and 2019, right? My short take on that is that seems that identity politics is still relevant, but not become the deciding factors. So at this point. And you can see that if you compare this issue to 2014, 2019, it is not as heatedly debated, right? Both in social media and also in the real world. Why is that? I think there are some explanation for that. Number one is because we don't have bipolar competition. Number two, the coalitions backing up each candidate is more fluid. For instance, PKB, who was on the side of Jokowi before, now is for Anies. As well, also Nasdem, who was in Jokowi's column before, now is for Anies. And then other parties who are also the backing of Jokowi's are now backing up both Prabowo and also Ganjar. That is another possibility. The other possibility is that the strategic thinking, why identity-based campaign is not played out very well, played out very widely now. Because, in my view, most of the people who are persuadable with identity politics campaign has been taking side to one candidate. Most of them has been taking side into one candidate. In this case, possibly is the so-called anti-Jokowi voters who is now supporting mostly Anies. So their number at the most is around 15 to 20%, Pak Leonard, as I counted. So if using this identity politics campaign for winning the election in general, it is not a winning strategy, right? So you have to move to the middle. And then another possibility is the salient of new issues, particularly the so-called dynastic politics, which is apparently not very influential. And then the issue of the combination of new order remnants, in this case Prabowo, with the new kind of authoritarian types of leadership adhere to the current president. Those are the issues, although those issues are not that influential either. And then the other issue is possibly what is the relationship between the president and PDIP. After the announcement of Gibran, which put Jokowi on the clear opposition with PDIP, his own political party, some of us expected or predicted that the relationship between the two would be much more conflictual, openly heated, and so on and so forth. That did not happen, or that does not happen so far. It seems that both Jokowi and PDIP seems to manage their conflict more calmly. There are some possibilities, some possible explanations for that. On the side of PDIP, they know that in many areas, particularly where PDIP is not having a strong hold, like in East Java and Central Java, they still need Jokowi to convince the voters to vote for PDIP. So conflictingly playing against Jokowi will not be beneficial to that. That is one other issue. I can go on with some other issues, but maybe Professor Firman could have better insight on that to save the time. Another issue is the importance of Jokowi's approval rating, because as Jokowi is maintaining his approval rating, he can put more benefit to the president candidate. In this case, number two, Prabowo and Gibran. And then the other issue is about candidates platform, which I will not touch very much. Just a few more slides, Professor Leonard. So this is just to give you an illustration. The data shows that the approval for the president is beneficial to the second candidate, Prabowo Subianto and Gibran. As of January, for instance, 51.7% of the people who approve Jokowi's performance is supporting Prabowo and Gibran. Only 22.7% of them is supporting Ganjar. This has, as you can see, the difference compared to October, and if you want to go back even further to August and so on and so forth, the number is very different. The one who
we have to wrap up, please.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
The one who disapprove is still mostly supporting Anies Baswedan. This is the policy issues. And others is about political party support. This is the summary. As Leonard has mentioned, there is a possibility of PDIP to be replaced by Gerindra because there is a tendency, but it is not necessarily so, because PDIP seems to be able to consolidate its voters more militantly and so on and so forth, particularly in the stronghold like East Java. Other thing is that only PDIP and Gerindra and PKB seems to get more support compared to 2019. One of the reason is the so-called coattail effect. And there is a possibility of the current party in parliament, one current party in parliament, PPP, to be out of the parliament. Possibility, we'll see. And so far, there is no new party or non-parliamentary parties that seems to be able to go through the parliament again to pass the so-called parliamentary threshold. That is the state of the race for political party support. Last point, there is a strong correlation between party support and presidential candidate support, like this. Parties of coalition Muhaimin tend to support their candidates. Parties of the coalitions of Prabowo and Gibran tend to support more solidly their own candidates, and the same thing applies to Ganjar and Mahfud. With that, I would like to end this presentation. Thank you very much. Sorry for taking so much of your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Jayadi. How time flies when you're listening to such interesting information. Let me now invite Professor Firman Noor. Pak Firman, please.
Thank you very much, Pak Leonard. Good morning, everyone. Selamat pagi, Pak Jayadi. Selamat pagi, Pak Leonard. Thank you, RSIS, for having me. Today, I'd like to present my perspective on Indonesian elections. And my main point, actually, to give you perspective on what exactly happened in Indonesia prior to the elections, and what happened today, and what happened maybe in the future as a prospect. Okay, next. In the introductions, I would like to share you about the current Indonesian politics, which is for me will be very important and interesting, because it is to some extent will determine the quality of election itself. Because my assumption is elections actually reflecting the quality of democracy in a country. As we know that nowadays Indonesia has a problem in democracy. Democracy is not really working, and there's a phenomenon that deteriorations of political control. For instance, parliament, only one or two party that act like oppositions, so that creating the nuance of elitism, in which less public participations, or maybe in the terms of Colin Crouch said as a post-democracy. For instance, in terms of making regulations, one of the very iconic of this is the Omnibus Law, including also IKN and many things. And also, we are now witness of huge practicals nepotism or political dynasty, including was conducted by Jokowi itself, and also anti-constitutionalisms in which some law adjustments conducted to give away of people on the top to rule this country. And now in Indonesia is not rule of law, but rule by law, in which a law was created to support the interests of the leader, and it creates a sense of Machiavellianism. Professor Ikrar Nusabakti, for instance, that saying that what happened today in Indonesia is to some extent the reflections of Machiavellianism, in which they use anything necessary to make political agenda successful, and it create problem of ethic. And the situations become worse actually in Indonesia. In the next slides, I will give you an example to give you a picture. Please, in the couple, make it quick. As you can see, democracy index from intelligence economic units in the last decades become so decrease. Next. And according to Freedom House, we are in the situation as a partly free country. Next, it also stated by IDEA International, as you can see, that we are in the situation where being categorized as weak of or low performance of democracy. And the next is some samples of the works of the people, observers of Indonesian politics. That indicating the quite low quality of our democracy. Okay, that's the context. I will give you the context. Now, prior to the political situation prior to the elections, a very iconic situation that I will say is the phenomenon of cawe-cawe or interventions Jokowi. It creates some problems in Indonesia nowadays, and it is reflections how Jokowi is getting stronger in the second term. It is normal because he had more supporters, more networking, more financial supports, and so many things, and almost all the important things in terms of power is in his hand. And nowadays we have a political atmosphere and in which power without effective control. We can say now Jokowi as a kingmaker, supported by the parties, oligarchs, loyalists, and family, and he tried to make the extensions of presidential term discourse. And I heard this news actually 2 years ago. I think it's just a rumors. I don't believe that, but I think right now I have to change my mind, and it is absolutely things that Jokowi actually had tried to do. So in this context, people now label Jokowi as a new order, and the main purpose is maintaining political power or continuity, keberlangsungan. The specific purpose of this cawe-cawe is to ensuring Jokowi's legacies, including IKN, and also to make a soft landing in which he realized that sooner or later he will be ordinary people, and he just don't want to be disturbed by the oppositions. So he have to prepare himself to make a soft landing. And in this nuance, sometimes people see that election is actually an intermediate target or target antara, or in which, for these reasons, conditionings atau pengkondisian, manipulations, attempts by all means, including collusions and nepotisms, including make adjustment in the constitutions, until the mobilizations of the leader of the village was conducted to make it successful. Okay, the next is the implementation of general elections. In terms of general elections, so far is on schedule. I believe it is. We enjoy stability, and even though there is discourse to impeach the presidents, to make a to impeach, but I'm not sure it will happen because there's no such parties in parliament that will support that idea, and most of the parties actually wants to have stability in facing the elections so that they can see the results rather than make a conflict with the Jokowi and his supporter that can destroy the result of elections on February. But now, in general, people is more focused on president election. This is more publicities and more hope, and also because I think many people tend to have a party skepticism and don't really in line with the parties. They put their hope actually to the presidential candidates rather than the parties. And after the Constitutional Court decisions that give legitimacy for Prabowo and Gibran to join the elections, there's an increase of people attentions and awareness. Many peoples from the civil society now become activists to see and to watch what happened in the elections. It's including quite interesting, not only the purely activists, but also peoples like comedians and of course some students. So many peoples now become more aware to what happened in elections, is in particular after the decisions of the Constitutional Court. And then, of course, the upsurge of social media platform use, replacing conventional campaigns. And now we can see the campaign contents more program and again agendas rather than just something gimmicks or things like that. People has enjoyed now some programs or agendas provided by the candidates to attract the people, and then but we can see there's a fragmentations of Jokowi supporter, in particular in PDIP cadres. Last information I heard that there's a situation where the cadres of PDIP leave the parties, including in Majalengka, in Semarang, in Solo, to support Jokowi. Even Marwan Sirait, one of the seniors cadres of PDIP, also now joined Jokowi. And it makes the extendings of competitions different to what happened in 2014 and 2019. There's only 2 pairs. Now there's 3 pairs, and each pairs really struggle and really commit to win the candidates. And also there's a phenomenon, the integrations between the interests of party elites and supporters. It happens for instance, in PPP, in Democrat, in PAN, in which the party elites tends to support Prabowo, but many of the supporters actually doesn't want Prabowo. They tend to vote other candidates, mostly to the Anies. So it happens now. And next, for the presidential elections, there's a discourse, and I believe this is quite right, that presidents wants actually ensuring there's a two pairs of president and vice president's candidate only, and it is we can feel that, and then there's a phenomena when Tempo said that anak haram konstitusi, illegitimate child of constitutions, to show there's a great example of nepotisms in the current situations, and MK should be Mahkamah Konstitusi become Mahkamah Keponakan, and president creates his own coalition. So there's a president candidate coalitions, but also there is president coalitions by hostaging parties leaders and promising a big win for the supporters. And like Pak Jayadi said, we have also problem with the professional and neutrality of state apparatus, including TNI and police. There's rumors in the last days what happened in Batubara, an area in North Sumatra, in which some of the apparatus was determined by the center to support Prabowo, and also there's a consolidated mobilized participations using money politics. It still happens now, and intimidating situations. It was stated by Hasto Crisanto, the General Secretary of PDIP, that intimidating situation happens, and even worse. And now the spirit of the contestation is the spirit of continuity brought by Prabowo versus a change, mainly brought by Anies. And also in presidential elections, we can see the rise of the Nahdlatul Ulama roles in the elections contestations, in which figures of NU now become not only the team success, but also become the vice president candidates, in particular from Anies, for Anies and for Ganjar.
Please wrap up now, Pak Firman.
Yes, but the challenge has happened. Cawe-cawe, or the interest of Jokowi is not easy to conduct. There's a rejections of three-period discourse and efforts, and now we can see the fierce conflict between Jokowi and PDIP after breaking up. And Megawati said that what happened today reminds her on what happened in the New Order. And even though Jokowi wants to only two pairs, but this maneuver is failed because there's a maneuver of Surya Paloh and Nasdem to support Anies. It becomes game changer, and Surya Paloh and Nasdem become the pioneers of Amin. Sorry. Next challenge toward cawe-cawe. Yeah. Also, there's a movement of civil society, from students to stand-up comedians. For instance, there's a statement, kami muak, we fed up with what happened in Indonesia today, in particular in relation to the Jokowi political movement. And one of in UGM, student senate declared Jokowi as the most shameful UGM alumni, and also there's a massive accusation attack towards Jokowi and as an anti-democratic and neo-new order. Okay, I will go to the last slides. Legislative elections, we can pass it. Strategies also. Prospect. Yes, maybe the lesson learned, or do I still have a time to talk about the prospect?
We can do that during the Q&A.
All right. So the lesson learned is in the Indonesian elections 2024 Indonesian elections, there's an impact of democracy conditions, and the Jokowi influence effects. There's a Jokowi influence effect, but not unchallenged. And we have a problems of political ethics, constitutionalisms, and substantial democracy. And we can see the importance of civil society as a balancer or opponent of regime interests. And the good news is actually egalitarianism's characteristics of Indonesia politics still alive. And elections right now is a medium of contestation between the support of nepotism oligarch versus pro-democracy, social justice proponents. And yeah, I think right now we can we witness that there's a shifting main issue from political identity towards political ethic and constitutionalisms. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Thurman. A lot of useful information there regarding the state of democracy in Indonesia and the nature of democratic regression. We have quite a few questions here from the audience, and perhaps we can kumpulkan lah everything. I think the first, which is very interesting, which is addressed to both of you, would be what kind of conditions would lead to a second round of voting? That's the first. And naturally, there's a lot of interest also in terms of the type of election timeline, particularly what happens if Anies doesn't make it, right? And is he still allowed to run as governor of Jakarta? The next would be a question regarding coalition between Anies and Ganjar in the event the presidential election goes into the second round. And last, we can look at the whole issue of a two-round presidency, a two-round presidential election. And related to the question before, will Anies and Ganjar's supporters consolidate? Do we see the possibility of two separate types of identity groups, the PKS and the PDIP, working together, in terms of supporting a favored presidential candidate? And looking at the parliamentary election dynamic, right? Would there be, what is the nature of the coattail effect for political parties? And of course, Pak Jayadi, when will you release your latest poll on the presidential election? Pak Jayadi, why don't you go first?
Okay, Pak Leonard. Forgive me, I cannot fathom all of the question quite well as intended by the questioner. Given the time, I think I have to answer with short answers, Pak, yeah, to each
Sure,
of them.
no problem.
Number one, what condition could lead to two rounds? Number one, in general, is if Prabowo's number is stagnant and or there is an event that could decrease his number. Now let's see what is the event or what are the events that could decrease Prabowo's number. One is the blunder, particularly in the debate. I think if you watch the third presidential debate about a week ago, Anies and Ganjar tried very hard to corner Prabowo, to push him to do the unforced error of making blunder. In a way, it was successful, but I think the time to elicit more problems, Prabowo did not allow that at the time. In other words, that attack on making Prabowo to make some sort of blunder was saved by the bell. That is one example. Another example, if there is, well, in the US, Pak Leonard, we know the so-called October surprise. I don't know. Maybe we could expect January surprise or Valentine Day surprise. I don't know what it is, because if we look at the security condition, economic condition, law enforcement, and so on and so forth, we don't know which can be the the surprise. So that's and another possibility is if Anies or Ganjar could maintain the stability of their supporters to stop the migration of Ganjar's voters to Prabowo, and Anies, on the other hand, could gain more of Prabowo's voters, which is now slowing down. So, and another possibility of making it to a second round is that now the only source of one of the big source of the possibility of having 2 or 1 round of election is that number of which I have mentioned, 6 to 10% of don't know, no answer, in which we can quote unquote call the undecided voters. If that voters are proportionally distributed to Prabowo, Ganjar, and Anies, with the current numbers they have, then Prabowo could win 1 round of election. But if that numbers is not evenly, let's say evenly distributed or distributed more toward Ganjar or Anies, then Prabowo's number will be stagnant. The problem that I see is that if you look at the characteristic of these 6 to 10% voters, their characteristics is more similar to Prabowo's voters, which are now more middle class down. Lower class people, lower educated people, lower income people, which are mostly voting for Prabowo for the clear reason they are mostly the supporters of Jokowi, right? So if that is the case, then the election can go to 1 round. If there is possibility of second round. But at this point, because nobody, including Prabowo, could gain 50% or more, it will not. I cannot say that the election will be 1 or 2 rounds. Another requirement for having 2 rounds of election is that if Prabowo could win 50% of the votes and more, but he cannot secure at least 20% of the votes in 20 provinces. So he has to have more even distribution of voters. I have counted this. The most possibility, the highest possibility a Prabowo could gain less than 20% of the vote is in Aceh. Unfortunately, in Aceh, Prabowo could end in the second place, meaning that he could gain more than 20%. So if that is the case, then the possibility of Prabowo to have one round of election to win is still alive. Number two question is the possibility of Governor Anies to run for the next gubernatorial election of Jakarta. Yes, it is highly possible. It is highly possible. But if Prabowo wins the election, I think Prabowo could nominate other candidates to fight against Anies. We don't know. But legally speaking and politically speaking, he is still okay to run. Coalition of Anies and the possibility of Anies and Ganjar to make a coalition in the second round if that happens, right? It depends. I think whoever entered the second round as the second winner in the first election, in the first round, will, of course, will ask the lost candidate to be on their side, right? If Anies go to the second, Ganjar will be asked. If Ganjar goes to the second round, Anies will be asked to join. The problem is the lost candidate in the first round has more than one option, right? So, for instance, Ganjar lost the election. Anies entered the second round. Anies will ask him to join, but Ganjar has at least three options. One is to join Anies. Two, to join Prabowo. And three, not join anything, not join any candidate. If Ganjar opts for the second and the third option, it will be more beneficial to Prabowo. Let's say they can make a coalitions. The challenge is that the voters on the akar rumput from between Anies and Ganjar is farther apart compared to the voters of Prabowo against Ganjar and the voters of Prabowo against Anies. So they are, in other words, Ganjar's voters is more likely at this point to align with Prabowo than Anies in the second round. Anies voters is more likely to align with Prabowo's in the second round rather than with Ganjar. But the latest development that I see that the rejection for that kind of coalition among Anies voters is less compared to the rejection among Ganjar voters against Anies. In other words, Ganjar's voters is very because of the PDIP voters, yeah, they are more resistant to be aligned with Anies rather compared to Prabowo than Anies voters resistance against being aligned with Ganjar. So those are the challenges. Opposition politics after the election. Pak Firman made a very good point, and I agree that there is a blessing in disguise, right? With that effort by the let's say by the president, by the palace, with all of that maneuvers, political maneuvering, political engineering, and so on and so forth. The rise of civil society groups, opposition, and so on and so forth, media, and so on and so forth, making the serious attempt to have 3 periods of presidency fail, and also the extension with presidency. With that in mind, we can expect that political parties after this election could have more freedom to choose their positions in the next government, right? Whether or not they can be, if the opposition force is rising on the society, there is a possibility of some parties to gain, to take that momentum. The challenge, however, it depends on how many periods Prabowo will envision his presidency, if Prabowo wins. The rumor so far, and also if, looking at the age of Prabowo, there is a high possibility that Prabowo will only take one-term presidency. If that is the case, there is no big incentive for political parties to be in opposition with Prabowo. Just like when they don't have incentives to be in opposition with Jokowi during the second term, right? Therefore, this is the challenge for Indonesian democracy. I am afraid the opposition will I'm expecting it will be better, it will stronger, but that reasoning, because as you know, Indonesian political parties is, they are more willing to be on the side of the power rather than on the opposition, as you know very, very, very well, and better than me, Pak Leonard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Jayadi. Pak Firman, your comments, please, on the questions.
Yes, very short, Pak Leonard, don't worry. For the first question, I think we still have a time. We still have a time. So each candidates will do their best. And of course, by using social media in any platforms that attract peoples, including the youngsters, like Pak Anies did, is quite good. And also, but the performance of the candidates, not only in the debates, but also in the activities that maybe will attract people, but on the other hand, maybe will make people doesn't really support it again. And also the role of civil society will also determine the situations to some extent. So the opportunity or the chance to have a second round is still there because we still have a time. And besides the thing that Pak Jayadi said, and until today, not much lembaga surveyors that come with the results with with the tendency to have one round. In general, the tendency is second round. And the thing that I'd like to answer also, it doesn't matters between PDIP and PKS, between PKS and PKB. They can join together as long as they have a common enemy in the situation. And to some extent, they see Jokowi and his proxies, Prabowo and Gibran, as common enemies. Then until today, there's a good communications between these groups, like Puan said. So it is not so surprising if someday they become a coalition. And also about the oppositions, yeah, I think PDIP shows their commitment to fight Prabowo as a proxy of Jokowi. We can see from the expression of Megawati when she is very angry with what happened today. So together with the supporter of Anies, they might be create oppositions in the parliament if Prabowo becomes the winner. But on the other hand, what happened in 2014, 2019, and also before that, there's a tendency in Indonesian politics where the opponent can easily become a friend. So this tendency could be also happened in the future. So for instance, like what happened to Pan, it's indicating that maybe, yeah, you are enemy in the elections, but to some extent you can also be a friends after the elections. So even though there's a chance to have a strong oppositions, but also to have a weak opposition could also be happen in Indonesia in the future. I think that's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Pak Firman. Thank you, Pak Jayadi. It's been a real honor to have both of you with us this morning to share your insights on Indonesia. I, being a Singaporean, been going out to Indonesia since 1994 for fieldwork, and I always feel blessed to have friends in Indonesia who explain Indonesia so clearly to me, like you and like you, Pak Firman, and Pak Jayadi. I remember the first very good friend that I had was the late Professor Nurkolish Majid, who explained to me the evolution of the political system in Indonesia in 1998, 1999, and he explained it to me as a hybrid between a liberal and conservative models. The Indonesia has to find its way between the two models, and we try to figure out what the trajectory of Indonesia looks like, and in a sense, what we also need to do is to try to make some sense over the issues of change and continuity, as Pak Jayadi highlighted earlier in his presentation. Much of the literature, if you recall from Pak Firman's slide produced on Indonesia, focuses more on change, the change dynamic. So we have to try to find that balance between the change dynamic and also, from my experience, the continuities that exist in Indonesia, shaped by historical, cultural, social, and political continuities. So in a sense, when we first begin studying Indonesia, we're studying Indonesia in an era of unipolarity, where the West is dominant. Now we move into a completely different era, different dynamics shaping the region, shaping Indonesia. So we need to bear in mind what all this means, and we want to thank you both, Pak Firman, Pak Jayadi, for giving us some insights into what the election trajectory might look like, and what may happen in the lead up to the presidential and the general election. We won't stop at that point. We have another presentation actually tomorrow, an in-person presentation by my colleague, Dr. Irman Lanti of Pajajaran University, who will be speaking in person at NTU at One North. So I hope all of you can join us for that as well. That is tomorrow. And of course, on the 7th of February, we have another webinar looking at regional dynamics as it impacts the elections, looking at the dynamics in West Java, Central Java, and East Java, and also the outer provinces. So we look forward to putting forward a comprehensive understanding of the election dynamic. So thank you, Pak Jayadi. Thank you, Pak Firman.
Can I have one?
Thank you so much.
Your presence.
Can I say something very quickly?
Definitely. Go ahead.
There is one question that I have not answered yet about the release of the poll.
Yes, the poll release, of
We'll
course.
release on Saturday at 4:00 p.m.
Thank you, Pak Jayadi. We look forward to seeing what your poll tells us. So with that, let me conclude this seminar this morning, and thank you all for participating, and most importantly, thank you, Pak Jayadi and Pak Firman, for taking time off your busy schedules to explain the election dynamics to us. Thank you very much, and
Thank you.